Today I'm here with Reno and Sunny Mahe. They are two of my heroes. They know that. I've said that. They know I mean every word I say about that. For years now, you guys have been people I look up to for a lot of reasons. There's a very public reason that we've talked about quite a bit, and the way that you handled this particular situation we're going to talk about has made me feel so inspired and has made me want to be a better person because of your guys' example. So I want to publicly thank you guys for that from the bottom of my heart. Do you guys mind kind of telling us what happened? Give us a little bit of backstory if you're okay with that.
Sure. So in 2016, Reno was coaching at BYU, and I had 7 kids at home at the time. So there was Tank, who was in afternoon kindergarten, and then Elsie was 3 years old, and Steele was almost 1. That morning, I was actually also watching a neighbor's 2 kids, and
Because you're a saint.
well, not really.
Seven's not enough, apparently.
And it was just a very normal morning. They were alternately playing nicely and fighting and bickering and tattling. And at one point, they were getting along pretty well, and I was washing the dishes in my kitchen. And Elsie, little friend, came and she tapped me on the hip while I was washing the dishes, and she said, "Elsie's hanging by the string." And like I said, it was a very normal morning with lots of strange tattling going on. And I was like, oh, okay, thinking, yeah, I don't know what that means. And then she tapped me again. She said, no, like she needs help. And again, I had no frame of reference for what this could mean. And I remember feeling honestly a little frustrated that I never get anything done around here. And so I didn't even turn off the water in my kitchen sink. I anticipated just going and working out this little disagreement and coming right back. But I walked into my front room to find that Elsie had become entangled in the cord from our window blinds. I quickly took her down and I began CPR. She wasn't breathing. I sent my son to go get help, and he had a neighbor that came and gave her a priesthood blessing. And she was, he called the paramedics, and she was life flighted to Primary Children's Hospital. And she spent about a week there before ultimately passing away. I don't usually like to tell that story without also, sharing some of the miracles that happened during that time. That, I mentioned that I had a neighbor's kids. I'm actually really not the kind of mom that often watches other people's kids. I have a lot of my own, and they make big messes in my home. And so I think people don't often think of me to ask because I have so many kids already. And I don't typically offer because my kids make huge messes, and I feel like embarrassed about the state of my home at any given time. But I had a friend that at the last second, her sitter had canceled on her, and she had an appointment that she needed to get to, and so I said I would. And if not for her daughter being there at my home, I don't know how long it would have taken to find Elsie. And that text that I got, it was a group text, and it was a message that wasn't even meant for me. It was meant for another woman in my neighborhood named Sunny. That I've never met another one in my life, and now there's 3 in my neighborhood. But the neighbor that my son found, he just happened to be running a little bit late for work, and he just happened to have consecrated oil in his pocket to give her a blessing. When we called the paramedics, it was before our new fire station had been built, and so the paramedics were typically stationed about 15 minutes away, but instead they were on break 3 minutes away from our home. And even before all of that, I have no medical training. I think the extent of it is probably Girls Camp certification when I was 13. But I did CPR perfectly. I had started her heart, and she was taking breaths before the paramedics came. And so, we really thought that the way that all those little miracles lined up, we had every reason to hope for the best possible outcome. We were expecting, this miraculous healing. And, even when we were going to have our kids come to see her, even then it was like, I mean, do we really want them to come be traumatized when she's probably just going to come home and be fine? You know, do we want them to see her like this, all hooked up to tubes and wires? And we let them, you know, and we were glad that we did, because she was experiencing, it's called myoclonic twitches, which I didn't know what that was, but it happens when the brain goes without oxygen. And it's just this rhythmic, like uncontrollable twitch. And it's kind of scary to see that in someone that you love. And she was doing that. And so we were like, do we want the kids to see that? And so when we brought them in, they were a little bit nervous at first, but they quickly just kind of started hanging out with her and talking to her. And my girls painted her nails, and they painted theirs to match. And when they were about to leave, they decided they wanted to sing to her. And they sang, "Families Can Be Together Forever." And as they sang, the twitches slowed, and then they stopped completely, and they never did come back. And even nurses from other rooms came in because they wanted to witness that miracle. And so, you know, that just seemed like one more way that the Lord was going to show his power to heal, that everything was going to be fine. And so when her scans came back and they showed that there was actually very little brain activity, and even that was beginning to decline, even then we were still like, well, that's your opinion, you know, it's actually up to God. And so we went to the temple, and there was 3 basic outcomes that could be that either, obviously the first one that we were hoping for was that she was going to have this miraculous healing. But the other option would be that she would survive, but with severe handicaps, maybe never recognize us, maybe never smile, never see us again. Or the third was that she would pass, that her mission was finished. And so when we got to the hospital, or to the celestial room, and I think we both had a pretty strong impression that it was going to be that third option, that she was not going to survive. She was going to die.
And you had thought up until this point that she's going to live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we held on to that hope for a long time until we got that spiritual confirmation that, oh, this is actually not God's will, that she's going to live. Like, we both felt it. And that was devastating for me, because I felt like I just don't understand, because I was the one that started her heart, you know. I got her taking breaths by herself. I felt like, why was I able to save her, but I wasn't able to save her, that she was going to die anyways. And it was actually Reno that came to me, and he said, you know, the other impression that I felt was about organ donation. And that kind of became that little missing piece, that because I was able to get to her when I did, she left this life as a hero, that she was able to save the lives of other people. And so if not for that extra little piece, like not puzzle piece, but peace of mind that I feel like we got, I'm not sure that I would have felt as at peace with everything, but I felt like her mission was fulfilled, that we were able to help her, because not everybody can be an organ donor. I didn't know that either, but there's pretty specific circumstances that qualify you for that. And so she qualified.
And have you had any contact with the people whose lives she was able to save?
So they give you just very basic information about people, because honestly, it's a pretty traumatic experience for both sides. You know, one side has been hoping and waiting and praying, you know, for this, and the other side is obviously the opposite, hoping and praying that we get to keep her. But we do know a little bit about a few of them. We've never reached out or felt like we needed to do that. It was an honor for us to feel like our pain could be transformed into someone else's joy.
Okay, I have to ask, how does someone get to that point of feeling like it's an honor as opposed to feeling bitter?
Even that, I would say, was a process, because after we had received that confirmation in the temple, I think it was that morning that we had gone to the temple, and by that evening, they came to us to tell us that it looks like she's kind of leveled out, that she's not declining anymore, which would remove that option of organ donation, and that would mean that we would be given a choice of whether to remove support or take her home and wait for her to get an infection of some kind in one of her tubes or something, and then die that way. And so that was crushing, honestly, at that point, because it felt like, okay, we were on board. This was a horrible answer, but it felt like an answer. And it felt like that was also kind of ripped away at that point. And so we went back, and that was probably the low point for us. We had a hotel room close by that we stayed in that night. And at around 4 a.m., they called us to tell us that she had had a seizure, and now they weren't seeing any more of those signs of life. And it felt like a blessing that she wasn't going to have to suffer, that we weren't going to have to make that horrible decision. And so even that, it did feel like this was an honor. This was a merciful thing for us.
This is why I say you guys are like some of my heroes, because you've handled this. I from the very beginning was watching and waiting for every post to get an update. And I remember going to the BYU versus Utah football game, and everyone was wearing pink. And I mean, I'm not trying to make this about me, but I remember sitting at the game and I was like, Sean, I cannot even watch the game. I had to be on my phone distracting because I just kept bawling. And I know everyone felt that way. And yet you guys handled it with so much grace. Reno, do you mind telling me how, like, where were you? Were you at work when this was going on, or when did you find out? How did you find out?
So typically I was coaching at BYU, and when you go out to the field, coaches will leave their phones in their office. You don't take your phone out to the practice with you. But for some reason, I left my phone in my pocket. Wow. And so I'm sitting there at
Another
practice,
miracle.
and then my phone just keeps ringing and ringing and ringing. And we're in the indoor facility. And so I think I finally answered, like, someone kept calling. I think she tried and she got tired of calling, but someone finally got through to me. It's like, you need to call your wife. And so I called her, and she said there was an accident and that I needed to come now. And so I just took off from the football field and just thought, I gotta go, and jumped in the car. I usually leave my keys in my car. And so I ended up getting to the hospital right the same time as they did, from primary children's from Provo.
Same time as your family, or is when the ambulance took? Oh, because she was life flighted.
She was life flighted, and I ended up riding with a police officer.
From the hospital.
In my mind, I'm thinking this is a super big emergency. He's going to put on the lights and we're going to zoom there. But that wasn't actually the case. He was very conscientious. Speed limit.
Oh my gosh, that would be so hard.
So she goes from Lehigh to Salt Lake to primary children's. I'm coming from BYU. And I actually got pulled over, and I still got there at the same time as them.
What did you tell the cop when you got pulled over?
That there was an emergency. So he drove me, he escorted me to the hospital. And
So
yeah,
bad.
and so we get to the hospital, and
And what were you thinking, she was going to be okay?
Oh yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't know if numb is the right way to say it, but it seemed pretty numbing at the time. Like you just there's this feeling of, I don't know. It's hard to go back to it, but I didn't feel too much. When we talk about it, I almost felt like there was definitely a feeling of calm and peace during the whole ordeal, and the only chaotic part, which I think helped with the whole calm and peace, was our family was at the hospital um, the whole time. And it was crazy. But the hospital, it was like we had 20, 30, 50 people. And so our family was with us. And so, as crazy as our family is, I think it gave us that peace and calm about our family and stuff. So,
And
And
it did
most of your
give us
family lives in Utah? Is that right?
oh, they came from everywhere.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Wow, you guys are blessed to have a family like that.
Yeah. It was, like I said, it was crazy. It was chaotic. The hospital was just, and they're probably used to the Polynesians.
I love that about Polynesians, by the way. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
So, her family came from Texas, and my family came. There, a lot of them are here, but they came from Hawaii, from LA, and they just congregated at the
when he
hospital.
says his family, he doesn't mean just his siblings. It was his elderly aunts that would sleep in those hospital waiting room chairs. Um, Cousins, distant cousins that would just come and sit and wait. If there was anything we could do, they were ready to do it for us.
I remember driving up Traverse for months afterwards and seeing pink on all the trees, pink lights. I mean, this just shows how loved you guys are and how loved Elsie is.
Yeah, even our ward family at the time in our neighborhood, um, they went beyond, like, and they're our family, and the way our home, and you could imagine it'd be hard to come back to our house after an incident like that, and for them to way they changed our home to where it wasn't even recognizable. And so, yeah, we definitely were blessed, and the comfort and peace that came from it, from all those. It's hard to just quantify all the family and friends that were there for us to endure through that. But like I said, because of all them, there was that peace and calm, and, like, there was much to stress about because everyone was there.
Were you guys able to be with her on her final moments?
Sort of. We had to walk her to the operating room
Oh,
for
that's
the
right.
organ donation. Which that was actually such a beautiful moment to just be able to hand her off to the surgeons and say, do your best work. Because we've been praying for you. We want this to be successful. And so it was a special moment to be able to do that.
What did you have your children with you, your other children?
No, it actually happened pretty late at night when they were finally able to take her back. So the other kids were already at home.
How does someone find hope when they're going through something like that or something horrific in their life?
I don't know another way other than the Savior Jesus Christ. Because there's things in this life, in this earthly life, that we can't fix. That there's no way to fix it. There's no way to make it feel right. There's no way to make our family feel complete without her now. But because of the Savior Jesus Christ, this life isn't the end. And so we have reason to hope, and that gives us pretty powerful incentive to choose well, to live a good life, to do the best that we can, because we have someone waiting for us that wants to see us, succeed and to do well.
Yeah, I echo what Sonny says, that I think for me it was harder to think of those that don't have that understanding, and how much that would hurt. Where it's hard during those times, or going through something like losing a child, and to feel so grateful that we're gonna be together without a doubt. Like, and so to have that peace of mind, to know regardless of what this world throws at us, that you stay on that narrow path, and you hold on as much as you can, that it's gonna be just a joyous reunion. And because of that, again, we can be grateful and happy in this life. But I think the hardest part for me is having that much joy and knowing that I will be with her again. I also hurt for those that don't have that understanding, and to think if they would just find that understanding and know that it's going to be okay. Like, and for what you do and what you're doing with these podcasts, and hopefully people will know that this stuff is temporary, and that that eternal perspective is real, and there's an opportunity to it, and and to be able to hold on to that.
Is that what's gotten you guys through? Not just gotten you through your marriage, it sounds like you're suffering, but you guys have this amazing marriage. In fact, just yesterday, you posted this funny video, and I just see how in love you guys are. And he's like covering his face. But I see how in love you guys are. And you probably know, there's a higher percentage of divorce amongst couples who lose a child. And yet you guys are so in love. Is it the same answers? But like, what makes a couple do that?
Well, you want to know what's interesting is that there was a very specific moment at the hospital that, like he said, we were pretty much surrounded by family and friends most of the time. But at one moment we found ourselves just kind of, he and I, and we were sitting on a bench, and I finally just said, "Do you blame me?" And there was so much that hinged on that moment, because I think I would have been able to sniff out any deception if he would have said, no, or if there was any hesitation, and he just pulled me in for a hug, and he said, "I don't ever want to hear you say that again." And he kind of, detailed, like, we just can't go down that road at all of blame, because should I blame myself? Because at the time when we were, putting in window coverings, we wanted to get the nice plantation shutters, but we couldn't afford it back then. So is it my fault? And he just said, we can't go down that road. No, I don't.
This just shows what incredible people you guys are individually and as a couple. Like I've loved watching you guys from afar, and every time you guys post anything, and it's mostly you, but like every time you post something, I'm just like, yes, exactly, yes, like, but you're so eloquent with your words, and you can put things together. I'm like, you're such an inspiration, and you guys have just been an example to so many people. So thank you so much for being willing to share this, and for being such a light to so many people. Is there anything else you want to say before we end? No pressure.
Anything?
You got some.
So this is the best moment to announce that pregnancy.
She's not pregnant, okay? She's not.
You guys have 10 kids, right?
5 boys, 5 girls, and it's even. We're going to stay even, all right? Which is funny because I'm the one that always wanted more and more and more. And now I'm just like, I'm done.
You only have 10, seriously. Come on. You guys are so incredible. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having us.